So this Panzer IV video covers the creation of the main gun, and you want to select a bamboo skewer that is round to begin with and has straight grain. And another thing to avoid is something that's like, if you can see that one side is dark and one side is light, then you've got a mix of heartwood and edgewood, and it's going to be very difficult to round that. So try to select for those things. And then take sandpaper, after you've cut off a nice flush edge here, and just to start out with, sand that down nice and flat so you've got a good leading edge for the tip of your gun. And then we're going to lay it along the template gun example here. We're just going to take a pencil and mark here at each place that there's a size change in the gun. The first three places, basically. All this stuff, just leave unmarked for now. We'll mark that later when you need it. Right now, we're just going to deal with these three marks. So I take these three marks, and the way I like to do this is I extend each of them as far as I can without starting to spin the skewer in that direction. And then I just extend them in the other direction, just to try to keep myself from spiraling. I used to just try to go all in one way, but it's really quite often you find that you're not meeting up with your original mark by the time you get back to it. And that's an easier way to keep on target. And then we're just going to take our utility knife and roll the skewer under it at each of these spots. Now these first two that I'm doing, the one's more into the meat of the gun, so to speak. You want to go a little deeper. This final one, you're basically just creating a ridge that you can feel with your blade. You don't need to go deep for this. So these two, fairly deep. That one, not so much. And then we begin carving it. And you probably can't see that I'm doing this, but every time I take a little curly cue of wood off, I'm going to turn the skewer in my hand. Now I like to get the back carving done first because it kind of makes me nervous. And you wanted to create that first ridge. And just be careful when you get to the end of your carve that you don't flake off any of the material. So keep spinning and just keep in mind also that the template is just a guide. Like, there is a wide variation between models available, and so it's kind of just something to base on. So try to be really careful when you get to this area here toward the end that you stop your blade right there. This piece is a little bit more edgewood than heartwood, and so it's giving me some resistance. There's advantages and disadvantages to both. The edgewood's a lot harder to carve. Heartwood carves like butter, but it's also really delicate, and you may end up breaking the gun a little bit easier if it's made from that. So I would select the material based on how you think the model will be used. I mean, if it's going to be just a display piece, I would probably use hardwood. But if you're going to use it for war games, or children might at some point be playing with it or looking at it, then you might want to use a tougher piece. And so, like I said, just use the guide as that. And keep in mind also there's no taper to this initial piece. So, you don't have to get it perfectly round, is another thing to keep in mind. You can use the side of the blade. Now this is not going to do your blade any good, but it is a good way to kind of get an overall rounded feel to your gun. And also you can use sandpaper, and sandpaper is probably the preferred method. That is both hard on the ears and your blade, and it takes a long time to actually get anywhere with that. So once you've got your main shape ready, you want to taper this from that kind of feeling mark you made before, and from the full diameter of the skewer down to where you've carved it. So that mark is useful because you can kind of feel it with your blade and then use the same area to start your taper every time. And I just kind of feel my way around once using that, and then you can kind of see what needs to be completed. And I would just leave the tip at full diameter and leave this area here, which is actually exposed, at full diameter, but you do want to use sandpaper on it. So once you've got your taper and your shape that you want, cut a little square of sandpaper like so. And you can either spin the gun if you're pretty close to the shape you want, or if you can see ridging and stuff that you want to remove, you can use it like this. But best practice is to just kind of form a pocket out of the sandpaper and spin the gun underneath there if you're not sure exactly where you want to modify. And that will round you out pretty nice and remove most of the obvious defects. And you can kind of do the same thing for your taper here, although you want to really be careful you don't start flaking anything off. And you have to use really fine sandpaper for this to actually work well. But give this a bit of a sand. And then the same for the tip of the barrel. And here, just this part, the rest is buried either in the turret or in the gun expansion little piece that you put on. So once you've got that all sanded, then we can cut it down. Now I recommend leaving the full length because, like I said, some of this is exposed, some of this is buried in the gun expansion, and some of it is sitting in the turret. So cut it right to the length shown on the template. Kind of carefully break that off, and you can just semi-sharpen the back here to make the insertion into the turret a little bit easier. And as a last touch, and this really makes painting easier and look really cool, if you can take a bit, like a 1/8 bit, and be really careful you get into the center. So remove it and check to see that you're centered. And if you aren't, just kind of angle the bit toward whatever side you're furthest from and continue going. You don't have to go very deep. You're just going to pop a little bit of black paint in here when you're done, and it looks really nice. So I wouldn't not glue this in. Don't glue this into the turret at this point, but you can set it there, kind of see we're getting there, looking like a tank. Hey, if you like this video, be sure to subscribe to the website and my YouTube channel, and like the videos, and hit the support button on the website if you can. If not, spreading the word is really good too. Thanks for watching. See you soon.